And to kick us off, we have the most specialist of amazing guests. We have the formulator and creator of Shakeology, Darin Olien, who has given a chunk of his evening tonight, and we are so very lucky to have him here. He's going to be talking about how Shakeology is formulated, the story and the evolution of this amazing product, and the integrity behind how it's sourced, how it's formulated, and a bunch of other stuff that will be really, really interesting and really helpful to understand what it's doing for yourself, since I know you're drinking it as proof the products work, but also so you can then share with excitement and pay it forward. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Darin. Thank you so much, Darin, for being with us tonight, and take it away.
All right, cool. So I will try to keep it as efficient and as fast as possible. Hopefully you can just listen to it, and we'll record this thing. And I want to get into it. I want to get into something that I essentially have never really put fully together in the 10 years that I've been doing this. And I want to talk about the true value and the true power of Shakeology. So just quickly for all of you that don't know me, I started this in 2006, originally throwing together these botanicals, having traveled around the world. And this was something extremely important to me, something I was dedicating my life to, and I just so happened to run into Carl and Isabel, and they said, hey, can you create this essentially what we're calling some sort of meal replacement botanical blend, and we're not going to compromise on quality, so let me worry about the cost, Carl said. And so I said, cool. I had just turned down another couple companies of doing formulations, and because I couldn't formulate with integrity in order to have the kind of botanicals I was doing and wanting. So that's how it started. So obviously I'm an author, I'm a professional superfood hunter. It's still weird to say, but it's true. And I think kind of the first thing that got me into it was it's a long story, it's in my book, but the last impetus for me was I got hurt playing college football, and then that changed my trajectory. Then I became interested in physiology and nutrition, and dedicated my majors to that. And then the curiosity kicked in, and I was instantly hooked on the magic, really, of the physiology of the body, and how this intimate world of botanicals somehow crazily help support our body being fantastic. So, I mean, just think about that for a second. Plants can heal us, plants can hurt us, and once we understand the right plants to consume, we can absolutely live the kind of life that we desire without having to kind of drag around this chemistry set of a body and kind of exist. So if any of you have seen me talk before, that's kind of the purpose of why I do this, because I don't want to live a life that I'm limited in the way that I want to express it. So anyway, I have a quick education, master's in psychology, because I was interested in how the mind intersected with the body and how powerful that intersection can be. Member of the American Botanical Council. But I have to say, my real education came when I started traveling around the world, when I started traveling to meet the people who grew and grow these botanicals, the medicinal plants, the whole foods, the superfoods, and meeting the farmers, even the shamans, even the researchers in those countries of origin, really starting to understand how these people and cultures used these plants, and what was the most important aspect of these plants. What were the powerful compounds that essentially gave them the strength of their potencies and of their healing. So that's where, over the last, I don't know how many years, I've essentially been involved with over 300 botanicals, sourcing them and finding them and seeing if I can get them to market. Some other work I'm currently doing right now with the indigenous communities in America, trying to do some superfood development stuff, but more to come on that. And I'm doing some very, very interesting stuff with some research into stem cells and how those compounds then essentially turn on the repair, the recovery, the performance of the body at its deepest core. It's a healing panacea. But what you will also find is that these compounds, these foods, these ingredients that I chose and that ultimately we chose to put in Shakeology are some of the greatest foods in the world, some of the greatest botanicals. So yes, I've dedicated my life to traveling around the planet, meeting the people, looking at the ground, seeing how things are grown, seeing how things are used, and what's the best way in order for them to get to you, get in that pretty bag, right? So at the end of this talk, I will take you through a lot of the needs of why these superfoods, why there's this bag of Shakeology, the true real meaning of it, but also I will take you through this cycle of, and I don't know if Jamie was able to put that up, but I will take you through the cycle of what each ingredient, each journey and path of each ingredient, and then you add that times 60, 65, 70 ingredients, then you really get a sense of how amazing this superfood bag of Shakeology is. Okay, so again, a lot of travels, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles of traveling and bouncing, and even on water buffaloes and horses and stuff like that. Essentially wrote a book on the foundation of nutrition, which I thought was really important because, as you will understand me, the foundation of eating well, sleeping, hydration, all of these things coupled with breathing and all of this stuff is essential for the foundation of the superfoods to then have more potential, more capacity, more ability to work in your body. So I will also just talk to you a little bit about the fallacy of magic bullets in the faddism of the supplement world. But again, sorry if I go fast. I just want to move through this so I cover all of the kind of the things so you can understand the depth, the reasons, and get a glimpse into my mind. Maybe not that, but that's way too scary. But so some of the things that I ask, originally when I was given this beautiful task of formulating Shakeology, I asked myself, what do we require as people? What do we need? And I will create the argument a little later as to why foods are lacking and why a place where superfoods actually need to come into. So aside from all of this stuff, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to tell you anything. I want you to listen to me and also take that in, listen to your knowing, and follow this up. Like Jamie was saying, get active. This is very intimate. We are putting things in our body. This channel from our mouth to our anus is essentially open to the world. It is that world that is only separated by one cell. That one cell is absorption of nutrients. And so it's a very, very vulnerable thing. So for me, Shakeology and all food, I take extremely seriously because most people do not have your best interest. There's toxins, there's environmental pollutants, there's pesticides, herbicides, larvicides, genetically modified organisms, all of these things and much more. 70,000 new toxins are emitted in our atmosphere without us knowing, and most of which are not tested. So unfortunately, to tell you that people do not have your best interest, they just want your dollar. And that sucks for us. So it's important for us to educate. It's important for you to understand that this is way beyond this Shakeology thing. You guys are representatives for a new paradigm, the paradigm of taking control back, getting powerful nutrition back in your body so your body can thrive. So you don't have to worry and sweat and be sick and tired and depressed, okay? So what is Shakeology? I kind of say, listen, Shakeology is a delivery system of some of the greatest botanicals on earth, period. Right? So not all botanicals can be delivered in this way. So you can't necessarily say that it's every single one, it's the ultimate best. But in this way, in this delivery system, in the way we test it, it is a delivery system of literally some of the best botanicals in the world. And that is incredible. And of course, with that, it is so far beyond a protein shake. Protein shake is one macronutrient, which, by the way, it makes me crazy. You don't need that much protein anyway. And if you look at my book, I have a chapter on dispelling the myth of all of this high protein crap that ultimately can lead our body and you down a road that you'll have to pay for eventually. So it's way beyond. It's a micronutrient extravaganza that we're really getting in every drink, every sip, every bag of Shakeology. And so the other very important thing, the non-sexy thing, but very important, is the high quality testing and assurance that we have. We spend millions and millions and millions of dollars when I mean we as in Shakeology, traveling around the world so that our eyes, our people are on the ground to making sure that those botanicals are grown and processed in the correct way. And that is a big deal. When you talk about all the ingredients, you talk about all the countries, then you have our teams making sure that those facilities actually meet our standard. And by the way, most of them fail. So the ones that have botanicals that we just can't compromise on, we genuinely have to just step in and get these processing facilities up to speed. And that's kind of the reality of some of it. I am behind the scenes. For me, I'm constantly working on quality control and increasing the availability of some of these botanicals, just because it's totally necessary. The other thing is we are clinically proven to help lose weight and maintain healthy cholesterol and blood sugar. So that's a clinical side. If you get the left brain person that wants to question everything, then you can throw the clinical data at them and say, listen, we have third-party reviewed literature, we've done our own testing, and we also are in the middle of doing some more to validate those people that are just plain skeptical. Just have them just give them one ingredient. And so like, do your own homework, right? So give them like something like Schizandra or ashwagandha or astragalus or cordyceps or reishi or moringa. Like have them look into one of those and just go, I mean, prove us wrong. So it's these things are crazy amazing, right? So and the other important thing that I want to stress that the messaging of Beachbody hasn't done a very good job is some of which I've already talked about. But the other thing is we're having impact around the world. It's not just about, and this is where I come from and my responsibility, communicating that to Beachbody and also to you guys, we're having an impact around the world, right? So we have farmers and hundreds of thousands of people that are growing these things, and we are helping to change and shape economies for some of these things, because the bigger we get, the more volume we have, and that's farmers, right? Farmers and growers are growing this stuff. It's the relationships on the ground, which is probably the biggest reason I travel, because I want to know the impact that we're having. I want to know that it's done correctly, and I want to support largely the many farmers that we're helping around the world. So that's an important thing that you just need to know. The other thing, I want to talk about what Shakeology is not, right? Shakeology is not a magic bullet. Don't ever say, drink it once and all your pains are going to go away. Not that you're doing that, but it's really about habit forming activities. And certainly, you know how they say an apple a day keeps a doctor away. Well, an apple has 300 different kinds of beneficial compounds, right? It's amazing. It's an amazing fruit. And now consider that we have 60 plus ingredients. And these are botanically rich ingredients. And each one of those ingredients has historic studies and have epidemiological use that are very powerful, right? So they're more than apples. So consider that an apple a day keeps a doctor away, meaning that eat an apple every day and it's beneficial to you. But now consider Shakeology being tons of powerful botanicals that you can consume every day. That will build your body. That will build your prana, your chi, your vitality, your ability to deal with stress, your ability to combat illness. That is something that largely, which is why I talk about hydration and water and all of these things, that you cannot have the kind of life that you want, certainly not a healthy one, if you want to blow off these foundational things. It just doesn't work. So Shakeology has built the foundation, and the passion of it was built so that this alchemy, this grouping of powerful botanicals that even upon them being together makes them greater than the individual parts, that by doing this every day, you get the benefits of that. And the benefits are infinite, right? So it could be, one person sleeping better. It could be another person not getting sick that year. It could be a person just naturally losing weight. It could be a person having more energy. It could be any one of those things of aches and pains and everything kind of vanishing. And that is not to say that exercise and drinking water and including Shakeology into that protocol is just the thing to do because of what it is, okay? So Shakeology is not a magic bullet. The other thing is Shakeology doesn't have artificial colors, sweeteners, flavors, preservatives. We bust our ass to make sure that the flavor companies can't slide some flow agent in there. We test for so many things on every sweetener, on everything. Well, of course, using whole, from the original whole food base, we're using those kind of sweeteners. So we're not running into those things, but it's so easy for many protein shakes and other kind of shakes in the market to even have natural flavor on the label. And this is where it gets really tricky, that if you don't even know what to have them not test for, it still may be in there because the FDA is a little slippery. So it even says natural flavors, and they still allow for things like propylene glycol and any things, at least a certain amount. But for us, we get into it. We don't allow those things. So we don't allow those coloring agents. We use botanical colors to make that strawberries, that color. We use, of course, the chocolate is the real chocolate from the cacao. Like, it's those kind of things. And we take a lot of pride in making sure that is. And of course, Shakeology has 0 GMO ingredients. So it's 100% supplier certified non-GMO ingredients. Okay. So that's super important. Obviously, we take a lot of pride in that. And Shakeology is not expensive. What? Did you hear me? So Shakeology is literally not expensive. I want to change this whole thing. When you understand, and maybe it will come together a little bit right at the end when I tell you a kind of a journey of an ingredient, that all of these botanicals, all of these tested botanicals for compounds of what they're supposed to have in it, the fingerprinting of those botanicals to make sure it's not adulterated, make sure it's potent. At the same time, the auditing teams that are following these botanicals around the world and all of these things, and to making sure that some of those things are coming from the mountaintops and from the jungles and from the far off places, that they're supposed to be what they are and that they're tested. So Shakeology is not expensive. Okay. Now, that being said, you can have any product and flip it around and look. And what if a company, what if they copy us? What if they do the same thing? I don't care. Doesn't matter, because I know where these are coming from, and these people are definitely not testing their stuff, or they're doing very little, because you can get this stuff from almost any broker. Okay, so that's what's super important. Okay, so moving on, I might have to plug in my hold on 1 second. Okay, cool. You guys needed that break. I could sense it. All right. So, all right. So the last thing I wanted to is have my computer shut off right at the time when you guys are getting in the flow. All right. So the other thing is, so what's in Shakeology? So obviously there's tons of stuff, but again, I just want to reiterate, prebiotics and probiotics. Why are they so bloody important? Because they're supporting your microbiome. They're supporting essentially 90% of your immune system. And by the way, feel-good molecules of your serotonin are happening in your gut. If your gut's off, you're off, right? So we cannot emphasize the importance of supporting healthy microflora. Okay, so again, I write about this in the book. There's tons and tons of research that's continuing to roll on the importance of good fiber, soluble and insoluble. Obviously, we have that boost, the digestive boost, which is it's a unsexy boost, but extremely important, as well as tons of prebiotics and probiotics in Shakeology. The other very important thing is enzymes. Okay, so enzymes are digestive. You have protease, lipase, bromelain, papain, all of these things. And why is that important? Because if you're lacking enzymes, then you're lacking the body's ability to break and metabolize things. And it's not just digestion. So it supports digestion and breaking down molecules. Because like what I said in the beginning is, as you're eating, if you don't have the labor force to break things down so that carefully passes that cell wall that's separating out here into inside your body, and you don't have the labor force, which is your enzymes, then you have big molecules that's causing a lot of inflammation. So two very important things is enzymes, prebiotics, probiotics, super supportive for the digestive system and keeping that regular. So let me see, antioxidants, phytonutrients. Okay, so the whole thing comes down to, we want to take this macro. Everyone gets stuck on how much fat, how much protein, how much carbs. Of course, that has a good starting point, right? But what we're really talking about with botanicals and really talking about our cells, and that is the cellular nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the antioxidants, the phytonutrients, the hundreds and hundreds, and if not thousands of compounds that are naturally within all of these compounds. So, those are things like, the goji berry has 400 or 500 compounds, the reishi, the camu, and the vitamins, and on and on and on. So you add all of these up, it's a receptive, call it nutrient soup for your cells. When your cells are healthy, you are healthy. Okay, so it's not about buying into a protein or lack of carbs or all carbs and all of this stuff. Shakeology is way beyond that. We're talking about cellular health. So then we talk about really that consistent use again, right? So another category that I just have to talk about is the adaptogens, and that's a natural substance that really traditionally has been used to respond to the stressors that your body's going through. And that could be recovering from a workout. Hell, that could be emotional stress that's causing your body to stress. That could be environmental toxins and pollutants that your body's combating. So adaptogens are this category of herbs that are my favorite, right? So it's everything from the reishi, maitake, shiitake, cordyceps, schizandra, incredible. I was in China last year hunting schizandra, incredible food, traditionally used in traditional Chinese medicine. Ashwagandha, deep 40,000 years of use in Ayurveda. Astragalus, again, all the way back to the Yin Dynasty in China. So these adaptogens are kind of the grandfathers, the godfathers of helping your body deal with stress. And that's sometimes pulling down the immune system, sometimes that's pushing it up. So there's a ton of stuff going on in that. And again, take one of those and just explore for, a half an hour on Google, and you'll be just completely fascinated, or at least I know I am. The other thing is the blend of proteins, right? So again, for me, it's more than just proteins. It's contributing factors. So, we have flax and chia and sasha inchi and rice and pea, and in the whey formulas, we have a whey isolate that's a denatured, very high quality whey that we use, and we're constantly sourcing and pushing on some of those suppliers. And I'll just touch on this for a second. The grass-fed world is moving in a good direction with whey production, but it's definitely not what you think it is. And some of the marketing stuff is not accurate. I've been to New Zealand. I've been to some of these places. So, at the volumes that we're at, we're just at the very high quality whey, and we're continuing to explore other ways of sustainable whey production. So it's something that we're constantly looking into, as well as all of our botanicals. I just had a meeting today looking at some new botanicals to hopefully get into the formula. So we're constantly seeing where we can improve. Okay, so with all of that said, these are tons and tons of botanical compounds, these plant compounds. And the most important thing you have to understand is these are proven plants, herbs, ingredients that have been used for a long time, thousands and thousands of years. And we have tested them, and we take pride in making sure that those compounds are active and at the levels that we want, so that they can deliver on that which is what they were made here to do. What would be the point of me traveling if we processed this crap and then put it into a bag and sold it? What would be the point? There would be no point for me to travel around the world to try to find these superfoods and to superfood hunt and sometimes risk my butt in the middle of places if we were going to process them correctly, or if we're going to throw crap in there as filler. So the point is that I have dedicated my life. And by the way, I'm not an employee of Beachbody. I'm free to do what I want. So Isabel and I set the tone, and Carl backed it up. Like, we're never going down in quality. We always are going up, and sometimes we have to move sideways if we have a botanical that we're growing out of, or that we can't get the supply or whatever, but we'll never go down. We'll always improve. So that's very, very important. So I want to quickly, how am I doing on time? I'm doing okay. I'm probably going to be a little over 30 minutes, but hey, what the hell? I want to identify superfood. I have my own definition of superfood, but it's funny. I wrote this down. Oxford finally has a definition of superfood, and is this: a nutrient-rich food considered to be especially beneficial to the health and well-being. It's pretty good. Way to go, Oxford. And so that's essentially what we're looking at. And sometimes these are exotic botanicals, but essentially very high quality grown food essentially can be a superfood. The problem is that you will see, if you do a little research, and I've pulled up a few stats, and that is through the Industrial Revolution, through the monocropping. So right now, I'm gonna pull off Shakeology and position it a little differently. So right now, superfoods, right? They're essential for delivering on plants and botanicals that help the body thrive and work optimally. Okay, those are superfoods. So why do I travel around the world? Because some of those things haven't been exposed to what our issue is. And right now, we have a percentage of mineral depletion that's been going on since really the 30s. And the Congress has known about this since 1930s. And after World War II, it really took on. We produced so much, but we started monocropping, and we didn't understand the soil. And those who did stayed with the soil, and those who didn't, we just created food but depleted of soil. And so if the soil doesn't have nutrients, the food won't have nutrients. So here's the crazy stat: 85% of North America is 85% of North American soil is depleted. 85%. That's an average. So there are some places where they're farming and farming and farming and farming you pesticides and herbicides and pesticides and herbicides and all of this stuff, whereas 100% of the soil is mineral deficient, depleted, right? So that's North America. That's us. That's right now, right? And they've known about this for a very long time. And then you have South America. That's 76% wiped out, and then on, 76% Asia, 74% Africa. So some of these exotic locations are really out of our own survival of finding the nutrient-rich foods again. So instead of fertilizing and pesticides and maximizing yields, we have to get back to the soil-rich kind of permaculture, organic kind of growing, and grow that back. And not to mention wild harvesting too. And sometimes that actually exists. So the other side of it is, as Americans, we're 90% depleted in potassium, 80% depleted in vitamin E, 50% depleted in calcium, 40% depleted in vitamin A, vitamin C, and magnesium. These are some of the most essential vitamins and minerals, and by our food being depleted, not caring what we put in and just thinking that this food is what it is, especially buying conventional food, we are stripping our body of the bare essentials on a cellular level. And then what happens over time? What happens over time if you don't have necessary vitamin E and vitamin C and magnesium and calcium, the very building blocks of us? Guess what? That's where chronic disease happens. Okay, so the other side is, okay, so we're mineral deficient, so we're already hurting. Now, unfortunately, we get slammed with more stress than we can possibly imagine, right? We're getting stressed from xenobiotics, and xenobiotics are the man-made materials. They're showing up in our waterways. They're showing up in our air. Like I told you before, 70 to 80,000 new toxins are being emitted in our atmosphere. We're getting hit with all of this stuff, not to mention nutritional stress. What the hell is nutritional stress? What does he mean by that? Darin, what are you talking about? What I'm talking about is the food that you buy, and you're calling it convenient, or you can't afford food. Well, guess what? You're buying food that those people really don't give a shit about you. I'm sorry to say. And they're just putting all kinds of stuff. They're trying to get away with all kinds of things to enrich your food or to stabilize it or to have shelf life or whatever. And that stuff is causing nutritional stress. So we have emotional stress, physical stress, even relationship stress. We have business stress. We have all these weird stressors that are part of our modern day. Therefore, what does that require? Guess what? When you're stressed, you need more nutrients. You need more vitamins and minerals. You need more adaptogenic herbs to deal with that stress. So what happens? So we're mineral deficient because of our normal food production and eating. And on top of it, we're dealing with so much bloody stress. We're just getting hit. We're getting slammed. So my position on, again, Shakeology or not, we need these superfoods. This is like a Star Trek episode where we're just depleted of stuff, and we need this pretty bag to show up with a ethical company that backs it, so that we get these deliverables, these botanicals, so that we can at least start to thrive and have a good time, and let our bodies do its thing, so we don't have to deal with being sick and tired. So that's my argument. It was quick, I know, but we are under attack with all of this stuff. We need to combat it with some of the greatest nutrient-dense foods in the world. That's superfoods. That's Shakeology, and that's why I created. That's why Isabel created. That's why we did this thing, and that's why we got the support of a crazy guy called Carl Dweck to hedge his bet on this crazy experience. So again, high nutrients, high availability. So quickly. Highest, I talked about this already, so I'm not going to go into it again. The high quality standards, auditing facilities, visiting farmers, testing for active compounds, making sure that carcinogens, heavy metals, all of that stuff is not in the product, as well as we have some of the greatest on our scientific advisory boards, some colleagues, some friends, some badass people that we help review some of this stuff. So again, I'm not sure if she has the slide or not, but I will make it available to everyone on this call, because this really sets a tone that's really important. So it's essentially well, I put 12, but it's even more steps. So the journey, the path of a quality nutrients, and I'm going to just read it off here. So the first step is superfood hunting. Right? In some form or function, it's someone showing up to investigate this plant, to investigate the environment, to just see if it's possible, right? I do that all the time. There's tons of stuff that have never even made it to America, that have not even gotten there. And I have a whole project that I'm dedicating to getting some of these botanicals out in the world. So that's the first step. So I want you to picture this for a second, and then I'm going to wrap this up. I want you to picture this is one single ingredient that goes on this journey that I'm about to tell you. And then from there, times that by 60, 70 ingredients, okay? So I just want you to set that mental picture right now. So this is one ingredient. And I'm not talking about any particular ingredient at this point. So number one, superfood hunt. Identify, see, and then investigate. Number two, meet the farmers, meet the growers, right? In some form or fashion, we meet the farmers, we meet the growers. That's number two. Number three, we go into testing. We test the material. We sometimes test soil when it's necessary. And we go into seeing what the fingerprinting of the botanical is. The next number four is setting the growing standards, right? So we talk with the grower, we talk with the farmer, we talk with the processor, and we set, hey, when do we plant? When do we harvest? How quickly do we process? And what's the best form and function to do that? Number five, then we harvest correctly. To whack these things off, every ingredient is different. If I cut moringa and I don't process it very quickly, it loses virtually all of its antioxidants. Okay, so it's extremely important to understand the botanical and to understand how to process it. So this again is every single ingredient. Okay, number six, then so we harvesting correctly, now we're processing correctly. And then number seven, now after we processed it, so we take it from a leaf and we've taken it into a careful drying and a processing, a milling, and a slow temp drying, and then now we test. So the next one is number seven, we test the botanical to make sure it doesn't have contaminants, E. coli, salmonella microbiological, as well as we test for the compounds that we measure the quality in. Okay. The next one then is, once it passes all of that, number 8, we package that up individually from the country of origin. We ship that to the United States. Once it gets to the United States, number 8, we quarantine it, okay, for a period of time, and then we test all of the other things. We test for the fingerprint of it, the botanical, and making sure it doesn't have any contaminants, okay? So then once it's past that, and it's in the United States, and we've tested all of those things, then essentially pretty much we start blending and mixing, and that is a layer effect based on starting with certain herbs and botanicals, and then eventually we mix this big batch of Shakeology in this case, and do some testing, and then basically it's to your door. So many steps, about 12 steps. So if you get that for a second, that's the journey, that's the path of one single ingredient. And so when you have 60 of them, which a lot of people give me shit for putting so many ingredients, but I just tell them, hey, it's job security, buddy. That all of these things have a journey to go through. And if you start to understand that, I'll be putting out some videos this year to really bring you in the world of superfood hunting so that you have an understanding of that. And that's what I want to communicate to you, and hopefully you can start communicating to people. But essentially, that is kind of it.